How to be your own best friend. And I also added via self-talk. This discussion is based on some notes. Today I had the opportunity to go back to my Kindle and pull up a couple books. How to be your own best friend and what to say when you talk to yourself. And I decided to put this together as a fusion to go deeper into what was discussed a few videos ago as we went into another chapter of Charles Fillmore's book, Prosperity, in which he stated, "Charge your mind with statements that express plenty. No particular affirmation will raise anyone from poverty to affluence, yet all affirmations that carry ideas of abundance will lead one into the consciousness that fulfills the law. Deny that lack has any place or reality in your thought or your affairs, and affirm plenty as the only appearance. Praise what you have, be it ever so little, and insist that it is constantly growing larger." Now, this brings me into 4 key points from the book, How to Be Your Own Best Friend. But before we get into these 4 key points, I want to share with you my experience as a result of working with this book. I felt within myself that I needed to build a relationship when it comes to being alone and being with myself to a higher degree if I was going to travel deeper into the depths of the inner world. In 2018, I came across this book, and I realized within myself that although I enjoy connecting with people, I had a real challenge when it comes to being alone. I always wanted people around me. Now, there was times where I enjoyed being by myself, but if there was an excess amount of time by myself, I would feel that I really needed to be around somebody. I couldn't be alone. I felt uncomfortable being with myself. I realized then I had this self-talk, certain inner dialogue that was preventing me from going deeper into understanding of who I really am and my relationship with the world. I then brought forth this book, Some Way, Somehow, and I decided that I was going to commit to a higher degree of building this relationship. So I started to do more things with myself, such as traveling, like certain kinds of sports, which, recently I spoke about how this last winter I learned how to snowboard, and enjoy these experiences with myself, engaging my mind in inner dialogue so I can understand myself further. And this process really brought forth a higher degree of being my own best friend. And the effect of that in relation to others is that I found myself being a lot more confident. My self-esteem went up to another level. I wasn't needy or feeling this sense of insecurity if I was around people to the same degree that I felt prior to working with this information. So being your own best friend has a benefit of building a relationship with yourself so you can really work with this inner world information, the inner conversation stuff, the Neville Goddard information that we've been discussing. I also believe that it levels up our relationship with others because when we show up to interact with others, when we engage in relationships with each other, be it personal relationships or business relationships, whatever kind of relationship, we will find that we are less needy, less desperate, less approval seeking, and we find ourselves being more expressive. Thus, being a friend to yourself is a form of self-confidence and self-acceptance, which translates into the confidence reflected as others seek that confidence in you. They get inspired, so it appears, by you. They're reflecting that. Same is to be said about the translation in, let's say, sales or whatever it is in which you are infusing that confidence into, the communication. Others receive that authenticity. So there's 4 key points that I pulled from this book that I want to discuss that I believe will help you to be your own best friend. And if you already are at the level where you feel you have an excellent relationship with yourself and your inner world, then these areas can contribute even more so. They say the first thing is to realize that we've been looking in the wrong place. The source is not outside us. it is within. So while we can find happiness and joy by doing certain kinds of activities or connecting with people, I also believe it's important to learn how to find that within yourself. And if for whatever the reason may be, you don't have access to certain people or certain sports or certain things that you do that allows you to find joy and happiness, you can find it within yourself where you are in that moment. And so we could do this through our conversations with ourselves. We want our conversations to be in harmony with our vision. We talked about this. And one of the ways that we can do this is point number 2 here, in which they say, when you do something you are proud of, dwell on it a little. Praise yourself for it. Relish the experience, take it in. Now, when I reflect upon this and integration of this book here, I realize that we can value each part of the journey. So think about the day-to-day journey, all the things that you have to do each day that are related to your goal, related to your vision. And sometimes we can find ourselves in this state of mind where we're saying we want to make it about the end and not value the journey. And as a result, we might find ourselves not being present and really valuing the lessons and the nuances in the experiences that we're having on the day-to-day journey. A conversation that I had a few times actually the last few weeks is when someone is experiencing some challenge, let's say, in their business. There's a certain project. This project shows up and they experience a lot of challenge, internal stress, frustration. But they know that this kind of project will be an ongoing deal, as in more of these kinds of projects will show up from the same client or different clients. So they go through this process of seeing the project all the way to completion from a place of stress and frustration within themselves. And they complete the project. And then later on, maybe a week or two, they get another project like that, a similar project. And so then they go through the process again. Stress and frustration, see it all the way to completion. And I talked about how one of the ways that I transcended past this experience that I used to have with the things that I was doing was to find a little bit more joy and happiness in that particular project as I'm seeing it till completion. Because then if I get that project again, I will automatically find more joy and happiness in doing that project. And this is where we look for the meaning. And this is why the being your own best friend and self-talk work really well together. Because we're essentially interacting with that project and we're having an inner dialogue, inner conversation with ourselves. Now we are more aware of it as we work on that project and see it to completion. We might be saying things to ourselves like, I hate this, this is frustrating, this is stressful. Reaffirming it and bringing forth that same state of mind again and again. When what we could say is, I'm going to find more meaning in this. Perhaps the skill here is to find more flow in the activity that I'm doing. Or the skills that I'm going to develop as a result of this project will be something that I'll be able to transfer over to my team. And I'll be able to lead them as they do it, and I'll be able to work on something else. So although I'm working on this project right now, it is something that one day I won't be doing because I will find somebody who actually wants to do it, and I'll be able to teach them how to do this project. So what ends up happening is the person finds more flow, more joy in the experience. They relish the experience. And what they also find is they are able to then transfer this understanding of how they relate themselves to whatever it is they're doing over to another person to help others also become their own best friend. And what ends up happening is a person develops a higher degree of realization of their potential. Or as they say it here, your genuine self does not want to do things that are utterly foreign to it. It wants to realize its own potential. Now, how I relate this over to being your own best friend is When I look back on my journey, I realized that every single job I had, or project I was involved with, or challenge that I was in, after I overcame it, I learned more about myself. And I'm not alone in this journey. We all go through this. We learn what we like, what we don't like, who we are and who we are not. We release from our consciousness certain beliefs, interpretations that are not true to us, and we align ourselves with certain beliefs, interpretations, assumptions that are true to us. As a result, we begin to discover, what do we really want to do in this world? Whether it be a service to others or experiences that we want to have, whatever it is, we understand ourselves more by valuing the experiences each day, the day-to-day experiences. And even dedicating time at the end of the day to reflect back and say, where did I make progress today? Sometimes what happens is a person might be so committed to the vision that they forget the importance of the present now, where the experiences are unfolding, leading to that end. And the meaning and the value of self-realization that is found on the journey to that fulfillment. This journey of self-realization can also be looked at as being your own best friend. One of the things that we learn, point number 4, they say, accept yourself and move on from there. This is very powerful. The key to being your own best friend is to accept yourself where you are right now. If you accept yourself, you can go within. You find more meaning to relate to the different experiences from a place of internal locus of control, elevating you into higher states of mind. You also value each experience and the nuances of the experience as you perform through your creative expression, through your project, through your research, whatever it is you're doing. As a result, you also realize your potential, and this lays the foundation for future goals, future dreams and aspirations. Because what usually ends up happening is once a person achieves a vision or a goal, they start the journey again, going down the journey, further realizing themselves to achieve the next goal. And in order to make this as flow-based and joyous and peaceful within ourselves, we want to accept ourselves, and this can be done both at the macro and the micro. Macro being that we practice accepting ourselves through inner conversation, inner dialogue, or just reflecting upon any kind of thought processes or beliefs that we have about ourselves in which you don't accept parts of ourselves, physically, mentally, emotionally, spiritually. And then we make peace with those areas. We say, this is who I really am. I identify with this. I accept it. And I'm moving forward with this. When we begin to accept ourselves at the macro like that, a lot of the micro things change. People begin to change in how they relate to us. You also have a deeper relationship with yourself, and your self-talk goes to higher levels. We'll talk about the levels of self-talk as articulated in What to Say When You Talk to Yourself, which is another book. I did a discussion on that. I'll put a link in the description to that, which I recommend, one of my earlier discussions. Now, overall, we want to work on accepting ourselves more so each day. There's opportunities. Observe and inventory throughout the day experiences in which you do not accept yourself. Maybe you feel in certain experiences you're not good enough, that you won't achieve your vision, others won't accept you. These are all interpretations, and just as we have the power to assign these interpretations, we have the power to change these interpretations. Now, we can also do it in the micro, so on the day-to-day experience. We've been speaking about this over our last handful of videos, to release from the identification. the reactivity, the tension, and to go into a state of acceptance. It doesn't necessarily mean that you would want the circumstance to remain the same, or whatever it is that we're internally assigning the meaning that brings forth reactivity to in relation to remain the same, such as, for example, if a person gets rejection in sales, or they make a proposition on a business deal and it's not accepted, or they are aiming to cultivate a team member into a higher level of proficiency, but for some reason they're having challenges doing this, which could bring forth reactivity in relation to fight or flight response. What we want to do in that moment is a release from that meaning. Accept ourselves. Say, you know what? Here I am right now, and I've made a lot of progress to bring myself to where I am right now. And what appears as chaos right now will one day be flow-based to me. There was a lot of experiences where I felt extremely overwhelmed as I had gone through them, or while I was going through them. And then as I experience them again, they don't seem as overwhelming. They seem more of like a light challenge, flow-based. That's because you have the reference experience. You know what to do. The same is to be said, for example, when I was learning to snowboard this winter, and I would see some of the advanced snowboarders doing all these different tricks and maneuvers, and some of them seemed so advanced to me when I first started. I even noticed as I continued to progress, I eventually started doing some of those maneuvers, and it seemed so natural. That's why when we have a relationship with ourselves, we realize that one day we're going to get to that destination, and we're going to have an inner dialogue to bring us to that destination. And this is going to help us realize that potential, and also, as stated here, it is a result of relishing each experience, the day-to-day incremental progress. If you look back, you realize you have made progress. If we stop for a moment and appreciate the progress that we've been making, we release from a lot of reactivity, and we maintain that ideal state of mind for a longer duration, thus making it our identity. So, acceptance. Accept yourself where you are right now and move on from there. That's one of the key things that I learned from this book. Let's tie this into the 5 levels of self-talk as articulated in the book, What to Say When You Talk to Yourself. I want to talk about these levels here because what we're really looking to go into is a level 4 and a level 5 through the process of self-talk. And we're doing this so that we can relate to ourselves better, become our own best friend. And the opportunity to do it is with our goals, our visions, what we desire to see brought forth. There is an inner conversation, a dialogue playing within ourselves every day as we realize our goals, our vision. So he says, level 1, self-talk represents everything from our simplest misgivings to the worst fears we have about ourselves. It is our way of telling ourselves to hesitate, question our capabilities, and accept less than we know we could have done, had we only given ourselves a chance. We want to practice releasing from this kind of self-talk, because this type of self-talk here, level 1, seems to bind us in that same state of mind and recreate those same experiences and our relationship to those experiences over and over again. We want to ascend past it. Now, if we're having this kind of self-talk, it's also important to not shame ourselves and be hard on ourselves. Just recognize that we want to be more at a level 4, level 5. So this differentiation can help us. Level 2 is self-talk is characterized by words such as I need to, I ought to, or I should. Why does that work against us? Because it recognizes a problem but creates no solution, he says. Better than, you could say, level 1. And then we've got level 3. So this is where we start making a transition. He says level 3 self-talk is the first level of self-talk that works for you instead of against you. In this level, you recognize the need to change, but also you make the decision to do something about it. He says level 3 is characterized by the words I never or I no longer. In this level, you say I never smoke. I no longer have a problem dealing with people at work. I never eat more than I should. I never get upset in traffic. I no longer put off doing anything I want to get done. So this is also a step in the right direction, because at this point, you are switching over to the next stage, and this is what we want to be mindful of. If we're at level 1, we can move over to level 2, and then level 3, and then level 4, and we'll talk about how we could do this. I'll give you an example. Level 4 self-talk is characterized by the words, I am organized, and I am in control of my life. I am a winner. I am healthy, energetic, enthusiastic, and I'm going for it. Nothing can stop me now. I like who I am. I am in tune, on top, and in touch. I have determination, drive, and self-belief. This is also what we refer to as ideal state of mind. That's one with a vision. So you'll notice that when you're in the ideal state of mind, you're having this kind of inner conversation, this kind of relationship with yourself. Now, this whole being your own best friend deal is not about shaming yourself or being hard on yourself because, let's say, you're stuck in level 1, level 2, level 3, and you have to be in level 4. Before we get into further discussion on this, let's cover level 5. The level 5 of self-talk has been spoken for thousands of years. It is as old as the ancient religions which inspired it. It is the self-talk of oneness with God. This level of self-talk speaks of a unity of spirit, a divine and timeless cosmic affinity which transcends all worldly things and gives meaning to our being. He says, so I urge you to begin to use self-talk of level 3 and level 4. If it's right, level 5 will come in due time. For now, learn the self-talk that will get you to work on time, help you fix your family ties, give yourself the self-image you deserve, and the basic things in this life in order. So let's run through an example. Say a person is very identified with level 1. They may say something like, I am not good enough at communicating with others, and therefore I will never be a public speaker, or I'll never be good at public speaking. However, there's a part of them, there is a potential in them to realize this, and they know it, but for some reason the self-talk is identified with this. They would be at level 1. Now, if they perhaps read certain books or watch certain videos or have conversations with people that have achieved success as a result of speaking in public or communication skills, they may go into level 2. I need to develop communication skills. I ought to become a better public speaker or something like that. So you can see how that's a lot lighter of a self-talk. And then we want to move into the third one, as he had articulated. This is where the change happens. So this is where they might say to themselves, well, I no longer am going to be this person that cannot communicate effectively when I'm in front of an audience. They're disassociating from this aspect of themselves in which they deeply identified with, perhaps for a period of time, maybe even a long time. And then they move into level 4. They begin to identify with the ideal. So then they might have inner conversations like, I am a good public speaker. I always was. When I look back in my childhood, I had opportunities to speak. And when I did speak and I expressed myself, people enjoyed it. So their self-talk now starts to encourage being that person right now. And they may say things like, I realize I get better each day. I am more confident today than I was yesterday. So you can see the evolution of the self-talk. Now, as the self-talk evolves, then the person starts exhibiting those behaviors. Then their reality starts to change to reflect that self-talk. So knowing where we are on these levels of self-talk can be very helpful to us. No matter where we are, we want to go back to, again, these foundations here. We want to accept ourselves. So if you're at level 1 or level 2 in your self-talk in relation to a skill or an attribute or an aspect in the journey, you say, I accept myself, and I'm going to move to a level higher from this foundation. And as a result of it, you're already saying, I no longer am going to, so you're at level 3. I'm no longer going to remain at this level. I'm going to the next level. And so then you get into level 4 self-talk. So as we engage in inner dialogue with ourselves in relation to whatever shows up, in relation to our vision, we want to be more in the level 4. And as we build this deeper level 4, then level 5 makes even more sense. And to further understand level 5 and articulate it in a different way, I recommend watching the video I did on the internal spiritual alchemy process, which I'll put a link in the description to that. And again, so this being your own best friend, this self-talk in relation to being your own best friend, will level up your self-esteem, your self-confidence, and will also, as a result of it, take you into higher levels of understanding of the infinite world within and the potential and capability that already exists within you, and allow you to express it as you become more mindful of the inner conversations, of the self-talk. So in grand summary, it's important to remember that no matter what level of self-talk that you have, you are transcendent to the self-talk. You are having the self-talk. You are transcendent to it. Just as you are having the self-talk in relation to whatever level, you can have the self-talk in relation to another level. And since we're committed to achieving our vision, our goals, we want to have the ideal self-talk that is one with the goal. And the key is to see this as practice, a little bit more so each day. And as you do it, what you'll find is that you will actually relate to yourself even more harmoniously. This will translate into others relating to you, environment, circumstance, relating to you even more harmoniously, because all of this is a result of what is within. And then we understand this last part of the quote here, articulated by Charles Fillmore. Praise what you have, be it ever so little, and insist that it is constantly growing larger. So what we're doing is we're saturating the consciousness with the ideal self-talk. And as you transform to the self-image that is ideal, you accept yourself even more because you feel even more connected to how you are meant to be. However, one of the key points to remember is no matter where you are on the journey, is to accept yourself right now, because to accept yourself where you are right now is to actually move into that ideal state of mind. And then what you'll notice is this self-talk will become even more automatic in relation to what you're experiencing on the journey. You experience a challenge, you'll find that it'll be easier for you to accept and release from the reactivity in relation to that challenge and find the accurate meaning or the accurate self-talk that will allow you to move forward. You'll know what to do as a result of thinking accurately. The key resides in this relationship with yourself. And so thus I recommend it being a priority. And to further stimulate it, let's conclude this with an affirmation. You can say, I realize more so that I am my own best friend. As a result, I understand how to communicate with myself. This translates into a higher degree of appreciation and understanding of the infinite world within myself. As a result, I'm able to dwell in and praise myself on the accomplishments and the progress that I make each day that is apparent and visible upon reflection. Through the process, I realize my potential, and I continue to realize my potential. This brings forth a higher degree of acceptance, which allows me to understand myself even more so, dialogue with myself in an ideal way, and move forward towards my vision. Through the process, I realize that if anything shows up on the journey that brings forth reactivity, I accept myself in that moment, and am able to release from the reactivity, find the accurate meaning within myself, identify with the meaning, and move forward from a place of flow on the journey to realizing my vision. If you would like a copy of this mind map, the link is in the description. Thank you very much for watching. I'll talk to you soon. Take care.